I'll give
Please
you
listen to
shelter,
me.
but for 3
It
days
wasn't
you are
his
mine.
fault.
She
You have
accepted
to
the
believe
deal,
me
but
before
she
it's too
didn't
late.
imagine. Shadows clung to the trees like dark silk, and whispers drifted through the fog, curling around her ankles as if the forest itself sought to speak. She shivered, pulling her cloak tighter, but it offered little warmth. Her journey had been long, and now, with the sun dipping below the horizon, she knew she could not travel much further. Every step felt heavier, as if the forest itself were resisting her passage. Alara had heard the tales. The villagers in the nearby town spoke of the forest in hushed tones. Travelers who entered alone rarely returned, and those who did told of voices that called them by name, of eyes glinting between the trees. Most dismissed these as stories, but tonight she understood the truth. Something unseen stalked her, something patient. Her heart raced as she stumbled over a gnarled root. "There has to be shelter soon," she whispered to herself. Her voice sounded small, fragile against the vast darkness. And then, as if the forest had answered, she glimpsed a faint light through the fog, glimmering like a distant star. It was a manor, an ancient structure, tall and imposing, with spires that cut through the mist. The walls were dark, carved with symbols that seemed both beautiful and ominous. Alara paused at the edge of the clearing, studying it. A sense of unease settled over her. The manor was alive with history, with secrets. Still, it was shelter, and she needed shelter. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her boots crunching on the frost-covered leaves. As she approached, the massive doors swung open silently, as if welcoming her, though she saw no one. A voice, smooth and low, broke the silence. "You have come far, traveler," it said. Alara jumped, her hand flying to her chest. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who's there?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. From the shadows of the doorway, a man emerged. Tall, with broad shoulders and hair as dark as the night, he moved with a quiet confidence that made the air itself seem to shift. His eyes, a piercing shade of silver, scanned her with a calm intensity that made her stomach tighten. "I am Lord Kalen," he said. "And you are in need of shelter." Alara hesitated. Something in his gaze was both compelling and dangerous, a force she could not ignore. I only need a place to stay for the night," she said. Kalen's lips curved slightly. "Shelter comes at a price," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper that carried weight beyond reason. 3 days. You will stay under my protection for 3 days. During that time, you are mine. For your safety, for your survival, you will belong here." Alara's heart thudded painfully. The words sounded like a threat and a promise at the same time. She looked at him, studying the sharp lines of his face, the strange, almost hypnotic calm in his silver eyes. I don't understand," she said. 3 days, he repeated. "No more. No less. You are safe inside these walls, but you will not leave. Not willingly, not without my permission." His gaze held hers, unwavering, as if challenging her very thoughts. Alara considered fleeing, turning back into the forest that had already threatened her sanity. But the darkness beyond was not forgiving. She knew that the forest would not let her survive the night. Her only choice was to enter the manor and accept his terms. I accept," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. Kalen inclined his head. "Then come in. The night is not your friend." The doors closed behind her with a low, final thud. The manor interior was unlike anything she had seen before. The walls were lined with bookshelves, some so old that the leather covers were cracked and fragile. Candles floated in midair, their flames flickering without smoke. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, curling and twisting like living smoke. "This way," Kalen said, leading her down a long corridor. His footsteps were silent, yet every step seemed to echo in her chest. "You will have a room, food, warmth, and safety, but remember, 3 days, only 3 days." Alara followed him, her mind racing. She wanted to ask questions. She wanted to know why he had chosen her, why the manor seemed alive, why she felt both terrified and drawn to him. But the moment passed as they entered a room at the end of the hall. It was simple, yet elegant. A large bed covered in dark velvet dominated the room. A fireplace glowed warmly, and the scent of herbs hung in the air. For the first time that day, Alara felt a small measure of relief. "You may rest," Kalen said, "but do not wander the halls. There are things here that do not welcome intruders." Alara nodded, her mind still swirling with questions and unease. "I will stay in my room," she said, her voice firm despite her fear. He studied her for a long moment as if measuring her resolve. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. "Good. Sleep well, Alara. Tomorrow we will speak again. The pact begins with sunrise." Alone, she sank onto the bed, her hands clutching the thick blankets. Her mind would not let her rest. She thought of the forest, of the whispers, of the eyes she had felt watching her. And then she thought of Kalen, the way his presence filled the room, the strange pull she could not resist. Sleep came fitfully. Shadows in the room shifted unnaturally, forming shapes that vanished when she blinked. Dreams came like waves, strange and vivid. She saw herself wandering the manor halls, pursued by unseen forces, and Kalen's face would appear in the shadows, calm and unreadable. Sometimes he reached for her, sometimes he disappeared. Morning arrived like a slow unveiling. Sunlight filtered weakly through the tall windows, casting pale patterns across the floor. Ilara awoke, her heart still racing, but the room felt safer, almost normal. Almost. Kalen was waiting outside her door as if he had never left. His presence was commanding yet restrained. "The day begins," he said simply. "Come with me." She followed, and as they walked through the manor, she noticed details she had missed in the dim light of the previous night. Tapestries depicting battles between humans and shadow creatures lined the walls. Statues of unknown beings stared silently, their eyes seeming to follow her with an unsettling intelligence. "You will have to learn the rules of this place," Kalen said. "Not everything here is as it seems. The manor is old and the magic within it is older still." Alara swallowed hard. "Magic," Kalen nodded. "A curse hangs over this place. Some say it is my own doing. Some say it predates me. Either way, it is dangerous to wander blindly." As they walked, a sudden movement caught her eye. A small orb of light floated near the ceiling and shadows recoiled from it. Kalen's expression darkened slightly. "Curious, isn't it? That light is old, protective. It senses intention. It will guide or warn you." Alara's curiosity overcame her fear. She reached out and the orb flickered, almost like it was breathing. A strange warmth filled her hand and for a moment she felt safe. But safety was fleeting. A loud creak echoed through the hall and the shadows around them thickened. Alara's heart leapt. Kalen's hand brushed hers, a fleeting, reassuring touch. His eyes met hers, and for a moment words were unnecessary. "You see," he said, his voice low and intimate, "the pact is not only between us. This manor has its own will and it watches everything. It knows fear, it knows desire, and it will test both." Alara swallowed hard, a shiver running down her spine. The forest outside had been dangerous, but this was different. Here, the danger was closer, more personal, and impossible to ignore. As they reached the main hall, Kalen stopped. "You will have breakfast," he said, "and then we will discuss the terms further. Remember, 3 days, not a moment longer." Alara nodded, though her mind was a whirlwind of doubt and curiosity. She wondered what it truly meant to belong to someone for 3 days, to be bound not just by contract, but by something deeper, something almost magical. And then she saw it. On the floor, etched into the stone, was a glowing symbol. It pulsed faintly as she stepped closer. Her breath caught. This was no ordinary magic. The mark seemed to reach out, tendrils of light brushing against her fingers. She felt a strange pull, a connection she could not explain. "Kalen," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What is this?" He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "It is the bond," he said. "It ensures the pact is honored. It will bind you here, protect you, and claim you if you let it. 3 days, only 3 days." But sometimes, his eyes flickered with something she could not name, sometimes the bond has a will of its own. Alara's heart pounded. She realized with a mixture of fear and awe that she had not just accepted shelter. She had stepped into a world of shadows and magic, a place where her will and her heart would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. And as she looked up at Kalen, standing calm and resolute beside the glowing mark, she understood something she could not yet admit. She was already drawn to him in a way that terrified her as much as it intrigued her. The pact had begun. The shadows were watching. And the 3 days were just the beginning. The first morning in the manor had left Alara restless. Even with the sunlight spilling into her room, shadows seemed to linger in the corners, moving as if they had a life of their own. The warmth from the fireplace comforted her briefly, but she could not shake the sense that the house watched her with silent, calculating eyes. Kalen had not yet appeared in her room, and she was beginning to wonder if he was more spirit than man, a warden of this living, breathing fortress. Every step in the hallway outside her door felt heavier, the wooden floorboards groaning beneath an unseen weight. A soft knock broke her thoughts. "Ilara," Kalen's voice called, calm and measured. "Breakfast is ready, we must begin." Her stomach twisted nervously. Begin what, she wondered. She opened the door and he was there, as composed and imposing as the day before. His silver eyes met hers, unreadable yet penetrating. There was a faint shadow beneath them, a darkness she could not explain. She nodded silently and followed him to the main hall. The dining room was vast, with high ceilings and long tables carved from dark oak. Floating candles lit the room, their flames flickering without a breeze. The air was thick with a scent she could not name, earth, smoke, and something older, something alive. Kalen gestured for her to sit. He remained standing, hands clasped behind his back. "You may eat," he said, voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "But I must warn you, your safety here is not guaranteed by comfort or food. It is guaranteed by understanding." Alara took a seat, her fingers brushing the smooth surface of the table. She realized the manor itself seemed to hum, a low vibration that resonated through her chest. Even her breathing felt heavier here, as though the air carried its own weight. "Understanding what?" she asked cautiously. Kalen's gaze held hers for a long moment. "The rules. The limits, the shadows that linger. This place, it does not forgive ignorance." She hesitated, then decided to test him. "And if I fail these tests?" He did not answer immediately. His eyes darkened, though the change was subtle. "You will survive if you are clever. But the manor may demand its due in ways you do not expect." Alara nodded slowly, trying to appear calm while her heart hammered in her chest. Something in his tone suggested danger beyond anything she had faced in the forest. She realized that Kalen was not merely a protector. He was a guide, a gatekeeper, and perhaps a warning. After breakfast, Kalen led her through the manor. They passed hallways that seemed longer than possible, lined with portraits whose eyes followed them with quiet scrutiny. Statues of figures cloaked in shadows stood at corners, their features sharp and unyielding. At each turn, Alara felt the manor shifting, as if it responded to her presence. "Do not touch anything without permission," Kalen warned. "Many objects here are bound with magic older than this kingdom. Curiosity can be dangerous." Alara's curiosity burned, but she obeyed. The slightest hesitation could draw attention here, she thought, and she had already learned that the manor did not forgive mistakes lightly. As they entered the library, a room so vast it seemed endless, Kalen stopped. Shelves stretched to the ceiling, filled with books bound in worn leather and strange metals. Scrolls were stacked carefully on tables, and small orbs of light floated lazily in the air. "This is the heart of the manor," Kalen said. "The knowledge here is both powerful and dangerous. Treat it with respect." Alara's eyes widened. She had always loved books, and here the collection seemed alive, almost breathing. She reached for a volume, and the floating orb near her hand flared softly, illuminating the golden letters on the spine. Kalen's expression softened just slightly. The manner responds to intention, he said. It can sense fear, curiosity, desire, even lies. Do not forget this. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened the book. Words seemed to shift under her gaze, rearranging themselves into meanings that danced just beyond comprehension. A chill ran through her and she felt a sudden, inexplicable pull, an echo of the bond from the first night, the magical mark still lingering in her thoughts. Ilara, Kalen said, voice sharper now, do not linger too long. The shadows grow restless when they feel your hesitation. She closed the book, heart pounding. I understand, she said, though her curiosity refused to fade entirely. The day passed slowly, filled with lessons about the manor's rules and its hidden dangers. Kalen guided her through halls that changed subtly when she looked away, showing her doors that appeared only when needed and secret passages that led to rooms she had never seen before. As evening approached, the manor seemed to grow darker, the shadows thicker. Ilara felt the pulse of the house more strongly now, as if it had grown impatient with her presence. She knew instinctively that the 3-day pact was only the beginning, that the manor itself might demand more than she had agreed to give. That night, while Kalen lingered in the library, Ilara wandered the hallways quietly, drawn by the faint flicker of light from a door she had not seen before. The air was colder here, and the whispers of the manor grew louder, curling around her like smoke. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was small, filled with mirrors of all sizes. Each mirror reflected her image, yet subtly different, some older, some younger, some with shadows stretching where none should be. She took a hesitant step forward and the mirrors shivered, as if acknowledging her presence. Ilara, Kalen's voice called from behind her, calm yet carrying an edge she could not ignore. Do not enter the hall of reflections alone. She spun around, startled. He stepped closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. The manor watches through these, he said. It tests, it tempts, and it can confuse. The mirrors show not only what is, but what could be and what you fear. Ilara swallowed hard. I thought I could see for myself. Learn, Kalen's silver eyes softened slightly, though his posture remained firm. Knowledge comes at a price. Curiosity here can bind you in ways you do not anticipate. She nodded, understanding the warning, yet unable to resist the pull of the mirrors. One reflection in particular caught her eye, a version of herself standing alone in the forest, shadows curling around her like dark flames. The figure's eyes were wide with fear, yet there was a strange defiance in them. Ilara, Kalen said gently, reaching out, do not mistake reflection for reality. The manor will try to sway your mind, but your will is your own for now. She felt her pulse quicken. The tension between them, unspoken but undeniable, made the air feel thick. His proximity, his calm authority, and the faint warmth of his presence stirred something deep within her, a mixture of fear and fascination. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the hall, low, menacing, and full of intent. The mirrors trembled and the reflections flickered violently. Ilara felt a cold rush against her skin, like icy fingers brushing her arms. Kalen's expression darkened. You have drawn attention, he said. The manor does not take lightly to those who test its limits. Before she could respond, shadows surged from the corners of the room, writhing like living smoke. They twisted and reached toward her, dark tendrils curling with intent. Ilara stumbled back, heart racing, but Kalen moved with the speed of a shadow himself, placing himself between her and the darkness. Stay close, he commanded, his voice steady, and the shadows recoiled slightly, hissing as if recognizing his authority. Ilara's chest heaved as she clutched his arm. What are they? Tests, he said simply. The manor examines fear and desire. It measures the bond between us and between you and this place. You must not falter. The shadows lunged again, and Kalen extended a hand. A pulse of light emanated from him, striking the darkness and sending it retreating into the corners of the room. The mirrors reflected not Alara's fear, but a calm determination, strengthened by his presence. When the last tendrils of shadow dissolved, Kalen lowered his hand and turned to her. "You see now," he said quietly, "why the pact matters. It is not just about shelter. It is about survival and about learning to trust." Alara nodded, breathless, her heart still pounding. I understand," she said, though the words felt inadequate. Kalen's gaze lingered on her, unreadable yet filled with intensity. "The bond begins subtly," he said, "but the manner is patient. It watches and it waits. 3 days may seem short, but it is only the beginning." Alara realized then that the manner had changed her already. The shadows, the mirrors, the subtle pull of Kalen's presence, they were shaping her, testing her. She was no longer merely a visitor. She was part of something larger, something alive, something that demanded courage and cunning. As they left the Hall of Mirrors, the manor seemed quieter, yet she knew it was only the calm before another storm. The bond between her and Kalen was no longer just a contract of survival. It was beginning to twist into something deeper, something neither of them fully understood. And as she lay in her bed that night, listening to the soft hum of the manor, she realized with a shiver that the darkness within these walls was not her only challenge. The darkness within her heart, stirred by fear and fascination alike, was only just awakening. The manor was silent, but Alara felt it breathing around her. Shadows clung to the corners of her vision, curling and shifting as if alive. She had learned to anticipate them now, to recognize the manor's subtle warnings and tests. Yet tonight felt different. The air was thick, almost electric, charged with a tension she could not name. Kalen stood at the end of the corridor, his form sharp against the flickering candlelight. His silver eyes met hers, steady and unreadable, yet something flickered beneath their surface, concern, perhaps, or a hint of fear. "Alara," he said, voice low, "we must go. The manor has drawn attention, and it is not idle." She nodded, her heart quickening. She had grown accustomed to his presence, to the silent authority he carried, but each time he spoke, each time he moved, the pull between them tightened like a rope around her chest. Where are we going?" she asked. "To the Shadow Realm," he replied simply, turning toward a door she had never noticed before. Its edges seemed to shimmer like liquid silver. "It is a place the manor uses to test resolve, trust, and courage. You will need both." Alara swallowed hard. Fear pricked at the edges of her mind. The Shadow Realm was something she had only glimpsed in the manor's reflections, in whispers, and in her dreams. A place where desire, fear, and memory twisted together, forming illusions almost real enough to touch. She followed him, the air growing colder with every step. As they crossed the threshold, the walls of the manor seemed to dissolve, leaving them suspended in a swirling darkness. Shadows shifted around them like smoke, stretching and twisting with intent. "Alara," Kalen said, his voice unusually soft, "you must not let the shadows manipulate you. They feed on doubt, on hesitation, on unspoken desire. Hold fast to yourself and to me." She nodded, gripping his hand instinctively. The contact sent a warmth through her that contrasted sharply with the cold void surrounding them. Together, they stepped forward, and the shadows recoiled slightly, hissing and curling into themselves. The realm tested them immediately. Visions of the past appeared, personal and intimate. Alara saw herself alone in the forest, freezing and afraid, with no one to guide her. Then Kalen's face appeared, but not as he was now, twisted, angry, eyes burning with accusation, and reaching for her in a way that was both protective and threatening. "Alara," Kalen's voice cut through the illusion, steadying her. "Do not look away. Do not falter." Her breath caught. The shadows reached toward her, twisting into forms she recognized, people she had loved, creatures she had feared, and her own reflected doubts. She realized the manor was showing her desires and fears at once, testing the strength of her will and the bond she had begun to feel with Kalen. Kalen moved beside her, his presence grounding her. "The bond is not only the contract," he said, his voice low and calm. It is the trust between us. Fear weakens you, doubt divides you, you must hold fast. She nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. The illusions pressed closer, whispering doubts. He will leave you. You cannot survive here. You are powerless without him. Each whisper was like ice on her skin, but the warmth of Kalen's hand reminded her that she was not alone. Look at me, he said, silver eyes locking with hers. Now, not the illusions, not the shadows, look at me. Her gaze met his, and the darkness shifted. The illusions wavered, unable to hold their form against the bond forming between them. For a moment the void felt less menacing, less cold. Ilara, Kalen said, voice almost a whisper, the manner tests more than courage, it tests desire. It senses what you are willing to risk. Her stomach twisted at the words. She realized that the pull she felt toward him was no longer just curiosity or survival instinct. She cared for him, more than she had admitted even to herself. And the manner, cunning and patient, had seen it long before she had. A sudden surge of shadows burst from the darkness, coiling around them with violent intent. Kalen moved with precision, extending a hand, and a pulse of light erupted from him, pushing the shadows back. The darkness screamed, writhing and retreating, but it was relentless. Ilara, he said urgently, we must move, now. They ran through the swirling void, shadows snapping at their heels. The floor beneath them was not solid but seemed to flow like liquid, shifting with every step. Ilara stumbled, fear gripping her, but Kalen caught her, holding her close. The warmth of his body and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat grounded her amidst the chaos. Do not be afraid, he whispered. I will not let you fall. She looked up at him, and in the candlelight-like glow of the shadow realm, his silver eyes seemed to pierce through her doubts. I trust you, she said, voice trembling but steady. The words felt like a shield, and the shadows recoiled as if recognizing the truth in her heart. Kalen's lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly in acknowledgement. Good, he said. Trust is stronger than fear, stronger than magic. Remember this. As they navigated the realm, the visions shifted again, showing them glimpses of Kalen's past. She saw a young boy, isolated and fearful, in a house much like the manor but darker, filled with whispers and shadows. She saw him making a choice to embrace the darkness to protect those he cared for, a choice that had left him burdened with the legacy she now glimpsed. Kalen noticed her gaze lingering. Do not judge me by what you see, he said quietly. The shadows distort. The manner amplifies mistakes and regrets. I am not merely what it shows. Ilara shook her head. I am not judging. I think I understand just a little. You have been alone for a long time. He looked at her, the usual calm mask slipping slightly to reveal something fragile, almost human. Alone is not always what you think, he said. Sometimes it is a choice, sometimes it is a curse. The manor does not forgive solitude lightly. The shadows surged once more, testing them both, and Kalen raised his hand. A barrier of light formed, shimmering like glass, holding the darkness at bay. Stay close, he said. The manor is patient, but it does not forget. They pressed forward, and soon the darkness thinned, revealing a vast hall of mirrors, reflections shifting and flickering. Ilara's heart leapt. She remembered the hall from the previous night, but now it felt alive in a way she had never experienced. Kalen moved beside her, silent but alert. Each mirror shows not only what is, but what could be, he said. Fear, desire, regret, all are reflected. Do not be fooled. Ilara stepped closer, seeing her reflection as she truly was, tired, anxious, yet determined. Then another reflection appeared, one where she and Kalen stood together, safe and unafraid, facing the shadows side by side. Her chest tightened at the sight. Kalen noticed the moment, the flicker of emotion in her eyes. You see, he said softly, the bond grows stronger when we act together. Fear divides, trust unites. This is what the manor tests. Her gaze met his, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow to the space between them. She felt the pull of the pact, the lingering weight of the magical mark from their first night, and the truth became clear. Survival depended not only on skill or courage, but on the connection they had forged, however tentative it might be. Suddenly, one of the mirrors shimmered violently and a shadowy figure stepped forth, a twisted version of Kalen himself, eyes burning with accusation. "You cannot protect her," it hissed. "She will fall. She will betray you." Kalen's hand gripped hers, steadying her. "Do not believe it," he said, voice firm. "The manner may tempt, but we decide our actions. We are stronger together than the illusions it sends." Alara drew a deep breath and nodded, feeling a surge of resolve. "Together," she said. The shadow lunged, but their bond, their shared trust, formed a barrier. Light pulsed from them both, strong and steady, pushing the shadow back into the mirror. The hall of reflections trembled, but they stood firm. Kalen's hand lingered on hers, warm and grounding. "You have done well," he said quietly. "The shadows respect courage and truth." Alara's chest heaved, the adrenaline still coursing through her. She realized the price of desire was not simply survival. It was trust, honesty, and the courage to face the parts of herself she had long ignored. And the pull she felt toward Kalen was no longer just curiosity or fear. It was something deeper, a connection forged in shared peril, in vulnerability, and in mutual reliance. As the shadow realm began to fade, returning them to the manor's halls, Alara felt both exhausted and exhilarated. The 3-day pact was no longer a simple contract of survival. It was a challenge, a test of courage, trust, and something far more intimate than either of them had anticipated. Kalen looked at her, his expression unreadable, yet softer than she had seen before. "We have survived the first true test," he said, "but the manor is patient. Tomorrow will be more difficult." Alara nodded, understanding the truth in his words. The darkness within the manor had tested them both, revealing not only the strength of their bond, but the stirrings of desire, trust, and vulnerability that neither could ignore. As she lay in her room that night, the shadows seemed quieter, though they still lingered at the edges. She realized with a shiver that the bond she shared with Kalen had grown stronger, and with it, a new awareness. The pact was no longer only about survival. It was about the choices they made, the trust they gave, and the courage to face the darkness, both in the manor and in their hearts. The manor was quieter than usual, though the air still carried the faint hum of ancient magic. Alara could feel it in her bones, the lingering pull of shadows, and the subtle vibration that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the house itself. She rose from her bed, her mind heavy with thoughts of the shadow realm, of the trust she had forged with Kalen, and of the 3-day pact that was almost at its end. Kalen waited in the main hall, the early morning light spilling through the high windows, catching his silver eyes in a way that made them shine like molten metal. He did not speak at first. He simply watched her, his presence commanding and steady. Alara felt the pull of that gaze, familiar now, and she knew that whatever came next would not be simple. "The manor senses the end of the pact," Kalen said finally, his voice low, almost reverent. "It has been patient, but now it will demand resolution." Alara swallowed hard. She had faced shadows, illusions, and tests of trust, but this, the culmination, felt heavier. It was not only about survival anymore. The manor had witnessed their courage, their bond, and their desire. It now sought a choice, a true act of selflessness to seal the bond or break the pact entirely. Kalen extended his hand. "We face it together, as we have before." Her fingers trembled as she took his, and the warmth of his touch anchored her amidst the swirling tension. Together they stepped into the center of the grand hall, where the floor began to glow with faint symbols, pulsing like a heartbeat. Shadows twisted along the walls, flickering and writhing as if waiting. "The manor will test our hearts," Kalen said quietly. "It will demand that one of us give something precious, something irreplaceable. Only then can the curse be lifted." Alara's pulse quickened. She understood now that the test was not fear, not skill, not even trust alone, it was love. And desire, no longer hidden, pressed against her chest like a living thing. A sudden ripple of darkness surged across the floor and the symbols flared brighter. The manor itself seemed to speak, a voice that was more felt than heard. Choose or be bound forever. Kalen's grip on her hand tightened. You are not afraid, he said, his voice low, almost incredulous. Why? Alara's eyes met his, silver and steady, and she felt her resolve crystallize. Because I trust you, she whispered. Because I know now that whatever the manor asks, it cannot break what we have built. The shadows surged again, forming twisted visions of their fears. Kalen falling into darkness alone, the manor swallowing her, illusions of betrayal, of separation. Each vision was vivid, almost real, yet neither spoke nor flinched. Together they faced the illusions, their hands clasped, their hearts beating as one. You are stronger than you know, Kalen said, his voice cutting through the darkness. And so are you, Alara. Fear cannot claim what is freely given. The manor pulsed, the light and shadows interweaving like a living tapestry. The final test was clear. One of them must offer something precious willingly, not for survival, not for power, but for the other. The shadows waited, patient and expectant. Kalen stepped forward first, his eyes on hers. I will give mine, he said softly. I will offer my freedom from the manor's influence, my life within these walls, if it will protect you. Alara shook her head, a mixture of disbelief and awe. No, she said firmly. You do not owe me that. True protection comes from choice, not sacrifice forced by fear. He looked at her, silver eyes wide, as if seeing her fully for the first time. Then what will you give? He asked. She paused, feeling the weight of the moment. The manor pulsed beneath their feet, shadows writhing in anticipation. Then with a deep breath she stepped closer to him. I give my trust, she said. Not because the manor demands it, not because I am bound by a pact, but because I choose to. I trust you completely. The words echoed through the hall, carrying a power that was greater than any magic the manor could summon. The shadows shivered, twisting violently before dissolving into the walls. The pulsing symbols dimmed, and the manor itself seemed to exhale, the tension in the air easing for the first time. Kalen's eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment the mask of authority slipped to reveal something profoundly human, relief, awe, and a dawning hope. Alara, he breathed, his hand holding hers tightly. You have freed us both. The shadows lingered only briefly before retreating entirely, leaving the hall bathed in soft, natural light. The manor felt lighter, almost alive with gratitude. The bond that had been forged in fear, in desire, and in trust now stood as something permanent, yet chosen, rather than forced. Alara felt a strange warmth spreading through her chest, the pull between them no longer tense or confusing but steady and comforting. She realized with clarity that the 3-day pact had been only the beginning, a journey that had revealed not only the manor's magic but the depth of their hearts. Kalen lowered his hand, but did not let go of hers. We have survived the trials, he said. But there is more to this than survival. There is choice, and love. True love is never bound by contracts or fear. You have shown me this. Tears pricked at the corners of Alara's eyes, though she did not cry. She shook her head gently. And you have shown me courage, she said. Not only in battle or against shadows, but in being willing to trust, to protect, and to let go of fear. You are remarkable, Kalen. He bent slightly, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. And you, Alara, are brave beyond measure. Not because you have survived the manor, but because you have faced yourself, your fears, and still chosen trust. For a long moment neither spoke. The world outside seemed to pause. The manor was still, silent except for the faint hum of its magic, now gentle and reassuring. Finally, Kalen spoke, a quiet command in his tone, yet soft and intimate. Then let us leave the shadows behind together. We are no longer bound by the pact. We are bound by choice. Alara nodded, her heart swelling with relief and anticipation. She had survived the tests, faced her fears, and found trust in someone she had only just begun to understand. And now she understood the true meaning of the manor's challenge. It had not been about fear or obedience, but about the courage to give freely, to trust completely, and to choose love in the face of darkness. As they walked through the manor, the hallways seemed to change subtly. The walls, once oppressive and shadowed, now felt warm, almost welcoming. The floating candles lit themselves gently, guiding their path. The portraits on the walls seemed less imposing, the eyes following them now with quiet approval rather than judgment. In the main hall, Kalen paused. "There is one final thing," he said, voice low and steady. "The manor is patient, but it never forgets. Even now the shadows linger in corners, but you, Alara, you have changed that. You have tamed its darkness with your courage and your choice." She smiled faintly. "And you, Kalen, have shown me that even those who carry darkness within can protect, care, and love without force." He inclined his head, and for a moment the world seemed suspended. Then, with a quiet strength, he extended his hand once more. "Shall we leave the manor together as equals, as partners, as something more?" Alara took his hand, feeling the warmth and strength that had carried them through shadows and tests alike. "Yes," she said firmly. "Together." The manor seemed to hum in response, a gentle vibration that spoke of approval and gratitude. The shadows did not vanish entirely, for they were part of the house, part of its history, and part of the magic that had tested them. But they no longer threatened. They lingered like silent witnesses, acknowledging that the bond between Alara and Kalen was now stronger than fear, than magic, than any pact. As they stepped out of the manor into the cool dawn light, the forest beyond seemed less threatening. The whispers of the trees softened into a gentle murmur. Alara breathed deeply, feeling freedom, relief, and a strange exhilaration. She had survived the manor's trials, but more importantly, she had found trust and connection in a place designed to test and manipulate. Kalen looked at her, silver eyes meeting hers, and a faint smile curved his lips. "The shadows may linger," he said softly, "but we have faced them. Together, we are stronger than any darkness." Alara's lips curved into a smile of her own. "And perhaps," she said quietly, "the darkness is not always something to fear. Sometimes it shows us what is truly worth choosing." They walked side by side, the manor fading behind them, its lessons and trials now a part of their shared history. The bond they had forged was no longer bound by fear, magic, or contract. It was bound by choice, trust, and a deep, unspoken understanding. The 3-day pact had ended, but the story of Alara and Kalen was only beginning. Together they had faced the shadows, discovered the strength within themselves, and found in each other a connection that no magic, no curse, and no test could sever. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the forest beyond, Alara realized something profound. The manor had given her shelter, yes, but more than that, it had given her the courage to love, to trust, and to choose freely. And Kalen, once alone in the shadows, had found the same. Together, they stepped forward, leaving the darkness behind but carrying the lessons of trust, courage, and love within them forever.